Hi, my beautiful family. Welcome back to Life-Changing True Stories. Today I bring you a powerful and deeply loving story, Asterisk. The grandfather clock in the hallway struck 9 in the evening. Emma Williams sat alone at the dining table, staring at the untouched meal she had prepared hours ago. The candles had burned halfway down, their flames dancing weakly in the silence. She had set the table with their best china, delicate plates with gold trim that they had received as wedding gifts 3 years ago. Fresh flowers sat in a crystal vase at the center, their sweet scent unable to mask the bitterness that filled the room. Daniel finally walked through the front, the door of their penthouse apartment. His briefcase in one hand and his phone pressed against his ear with the other. He barely glanced at Emma as he moved past her toward his study. She watched him disappear down the hallway, feeling invisible once again. This had become their routine. She would wait, hope, and ultimately eat dinner alone while he worked late into the night. Emma stood up slowly, her heart heavy with disappointment. She walked to the study and knocked gently on the door before pushing it open. Daniel sat behind his mahogany desk, typing furiously on his laptop. The blue light from the screen reflected off his face, making him look even more distant than usual. "Daniel, we need to talk," Emma said softly, trying to keep her voice steady. He did not look up from his work. "Can this wait?" "I have a major deal closing tomorrow morning." "No, it cannot wait," Emma replied, her voice gaining strength. "It has waited long enough. We have waited long enough." Daniel sighed with obvious irritation and finally raised his eyes to meet hers. "What is it, Emma? What is so urgent that it cannot wait until tomorrow?" Emma felt her chest tighten. She had practiced this conversation in her mind 100 times. But now that the moment had arrived, the words felt stuck in her throat. She took a deep breath and stepped closer to his desk. "When did we stop being a couple?" she asked quietly. "When did you stop seeing me as your wife and start treating me like I am just another piece of furniture in this apartment?" Daniel leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms over his chest. His expression remained cold and unreadable. "Emma, I work hard to provide this lifestyle for us. You live in a beautiful home. You have everything you could possibly want. What more do you expect from me?" "I expect you to actually be present in our marriage," Emma said, her voice breaking slightly. "I do not want expensive things or fancy dinners at restaurants. I want my husband to come home and talk to me. I want to feel like I matter to you." Daniel rubbed his temples as if she was giving him a headache. "You are being dramatic. This is how marriages work when you are building an empire. You knew what you were signing up for when you married me." "No," Emma shook her head, tears beginning to form in her eyes. "I signed up to marry a man who loved me, who made me feel special. The man I fell in love with used to bring me flowers for no reason. He used to laugh with me and make plans for our future together. Where did that man go?" Daniel stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the hardwood floor. His jaw was tight, and for the first time in months, he looked directly at Emma with something other than indifference. But what she saw in his eyes was not love or concern. It was frustration and something colder. "You want to know the truth?" Daniel said, his voice low and harsh. "Fine. The truth is that marrying you was a mistake. You were the biggest mistake of my life." The words hit Emma like a physical blow. She felt the air leave her lungs as she stared at him in shock. The room seemed to spin around her, and she gripped the edge of the desk to steady herself. "What did you just say?" she whispered, hoping she had misheard him. "You heard me," Daniel continued, his tone unwavering. "I got caught up in the romance and the idea of having a wife, but the reality is that you hold me back. You demand attention and time that I do not have. You are a burden I cannot afford anymore." Emma felt hot tears streaming down her face, but she refused to look away from him. She wanted him to see the pain he was causing, to understand the weight of the words he had just spoken. But Daniel's expression remained unchanged, as cold and distant as ever. "If that is truly how you feel," Emma said, her voice shaking but determined, "then I will make this easy for you. I am leaving." She turned and walked out of the study, her legs trembling beneath her. Behind her, she heard Daniel call her name once, but she did not stop. She went straight to their bedroom and pulled a suitcase from the closet. Her hands shook as she began throwing clothes into it, not caring what she grabbed or how they were folded. Emma looked around the room that had once felt like a sanctuary. The luxurious silk bedding, the walk-in closet filled with designer clothes, The view of the city skyline through the floor-to-ceiling windows, none of it mattered anymore. This beautiful prison had stopped being a home the moment Daniel stopped loving her, if he ever truly had. She zipped up the suitcase and took one last look at the framed photograph on her nightstand. It was from their wedding day. They both looked so happy, so full of hope for the future. Emma picked up the frame and stared at the image of herself, a younger woman who had no idea what was coming. She set it face down on the table and walked out of the room. Daniel was standing in the hallway when she emerged with her suitcase. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Emma could see something flicker across his face, perhaps regret or surprise, but it disappeared as quickly as it came. "Where will you go?" he asked, his voice lacking any real concern. "Anywhere but here," she replied simply. "Somewhere I am not a mistake." She walked past him toward the front door, her head held high despite the tears still flowing down her cheeks. As she reached for the doorknob, Daniel spoke again. "You will regret this. You are giving up everything." Emma paused and looked back at him one final time. "No, Daniel. I am finally choosing myself. The only thing I regret is not doing this sooner." She opened the door and stepped out into the hallway, pulling her suitcase behind her. The sound of the door closing echoed in the empty corridor. Emma stood there for a moment, taking deep breaths and trying to process what had just happened. Her entire life had changed in the span of a single conversation. She pulled out her phone and called. The only person she knew would answer at this hour. Grace, her best friend since college, picked up on the second ring. "Emma, is everything okay?" Grace asked, concern evident in her voice. "No," Emma admitted, her voice cracking. "Nothing is okay. Can I stay with you tonight?" "I just left Daniel." Of course, Grace said immediately. "Come over right now. I will put the kettle on." Emma took the elevator down to the lobby and stepped out into the cool night air. The city was still alive with people and traffic, completely unaware of the personal earthquake that had just shaken her world. She hailed a taxi and gave the driver Grace's address across town as the car pulled away from the building where she had lived for 3 years. Emma looked back one last time at the towering structure of glass and steel. Somewhere up there in the penthouse apartment, Daniel was probably already back at his desk, focused on his business deals and his empire. The realization that he would barely miss her presence hurt, more than anything else. But as the taxi merged into traffic and the building disappeared from view, Emma felt something unexpected stirring in her chest alongside the pain. It was small and fragile, but it was there. Hope, for the first time in years, she had chosen herself. She had walked away from a life that was slowly killing her spirit. The road ahead was uncertain and frightening, but it was hers to walk. Emma wiped the tears from her cheeks and looked out at the city lights passing by. She did not know what tomorrow would bring or how she would rebuild her life from this point. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She was not a mistake. She never had been. And she would prove it to herself, even if Daniel never understood what he had lost. Emma woke up on Grace's couch with sunlight streaming through the curtains. For a brief moment, she forgot where she was and why. Then reality crashed down on her like a wave. She sat up slowly, her body aching from a restless night of sleep. Grace appeared in the doorway holding 2 mugs of coffee, her expression filled with sympathy and concern. "Good morning," Grace said gently, handing Emma one of the mugs. "How are you feeling?" Emma wrapped her hands around the warm cup and stared into the dark liquid. "Like my entire life just fell apart." Grace sat down beside her and put a comforting arm around her shoulders. "I know it feels that way right now, but I promise you, this is not the end. This is actually the beginning of something better." Emma wanted to believe her friend, but the pain was still too fresh. She spent the next few days in a fog, barely eating or speaking. Grace gave her space while also making sure she was never truly alone. On the 4th day, Grace sat down across from Emma at the kitchen table with a determined look on her face. "Okay, enough mourning," Grace announced firmly. "I love you, and I have let you process this heartbreak. But now it is time to start moving forward. You are talented, smart, and capable. Daniel may not have seen your worth, but the rest of the world will." Kema looked up at her friend with tired eyes. "What am I supposed to do?" "I left everything behind. I have no job, no place to live, nothing." "You have your skills," Grace reminded her. You are an incredible interior designer. Before you married Daniel, you were building a name for yourself. Remember all those projects you worked on? The boutique hotel renovation. The restaurant redesign that won that award? Emma had almost forgotten about her career. She had given it up when Daniel convinced her that he wanted a wife who could focus on their home and social life. At the time, it had seemed romantic, like he wanted to take care of her. Now she realized it had been another way to control her and make her dependent on him. "I have been out of the industry for 3 years," Emma said quietly. "Nobody will remember me and remind them," Grace said with a smile. "I still have contacts from when I worked in marketing. Let me make some calls. I bet we can get you some freelance work to start." Over the following weeks, Emma slowly began to rebuild her confidence. Grace was true to her word and connected her with several small projects. Emma threw herself into the work, grateful for the distraction and the opportunity to use her creative skills again. She rented a small studio apartment in a modest neighborhood. Nothing like the luxury penthouse she had shared with Daniel, but it felt more like home than that place ever had. Her first major break came when she was hired to redesign a popular coffee shop in the Arts District. The owner, a woman named Patricia, gave Emma complete creative freedom. Emma poured her heart into the project, selecting warm colors, comfortable furniture, and unique lighting fixtures that created an inviting atmosphere. When the redesign was complete, the coffee shop became an instant hit. Customers loved the new space, and photographs of the interior started appearing on social media. Patricia was thrilled with the results and recommended Emma to other business owners in the area. Soon, Emma had more work than she could handle. She was designing boutiques, restaurants, office spaces, and even a small art gallery. Each project allowed her to express herself in ways she never could during her marriage. She was no longer invisible or unimportant. Her work spoke for itself, and people valued her vision. 6 months after leaving Daniel, Emma attended a networking event for design professionals and potential clients. She wore a simple navy dress and had pulled her hair back in a neat style. As she walked through the gallery space where the event was being held, she felt genuinely happy for the first time in years. She was proud of what she had accomplished on her own. She was examining a modern sculpture when a deep voice spoke from behind her. "Interesting piece, is it not? I cannot decide if I love it or hate it." Emma turned around and found herself looking at a tall man with kind brown eyes and an easy smile. He wore a casual blazer over a button-down shirt, and there was an approachable quality about him that immediately put her at ease. "I think that is the point of modern art," Emma replied with a smile. "It is supposed to make you feel something, even if that something is confusion." The man laughed warmly. "That is a fair point. I am Nathan Brooks, by the way. I am an architect." Emma Williams. Interior designer. They shook hands, and Emma felt a small spark of connection. Nathan had an openness about him that was refreshing. Over the next hour, they talked about design, philosophy, favorite projects, and their shared love of creating beautiful spaces. Nathan listened intently when Emma spoke, asking thoughtful questions and genuinely engaging with her ideas. It was such a contrast to the conversations she used to have with Daniel, where she always felt like she was interrupting something more important. "I have actually seen some of your recent work," Nathan admitted. "The coffee shop in the Arts District? That was you, right? I was really impressed by how you transformed that space. It feels warm and inviting while still being modern." Emma felt her cheeks flush with pride. "Thank you. That project was special to me." "Would you be interested in collaborating on something?" Nathan asked. "I am working on a residential development, and we are looking for an interior designer to handle the model units. I think your aesthetic would be perfect." Emma's heart raced with excitement. This was exactly the kind of opportunity she had been hoping for. "I would love to discuss it further." They exchanged contact information, and Nathan promised to send her the project details. As the evening came to a close, Emma felt lighter than she had in months. She had made a genuine connection with someone who respected her work and saw her as an equal professional. Over the next several weeks, Emma and Nathan worked closely together on the residential project. They met regularly to discuss design concepts, review floor plans, and coordinate their visions for the spaces. Emma found herself looking forward to their meetings. Nathan was collaborative and creative, always open to her suggestions and willing to adapt his architectural plans to accommodate her interior designs. But it was more than just professional respect. Nathan made her laugh. He brought her coffee during long planning sessions and remembered small details she mentioned in passing. When Emma told him about a vintage furniture store she loved, he surprised her by taking her there one Saturday afternoon to look for pieces for the model units. As they browsed through mid-century chairs and antique lamps, Emma realized she was having fun in a way she had not experienced in years. One evening, after a particularly productive work session, Nathan suggested they grab dinner at a nearby restaurant. Emma hesitated for a moment, wondering if this crossed the line from professional to personal. But then she reminded herself that she was allowed to have dinner with a friend and colleague. She was no longer trapped in a marriage where every action was scrutinized. The restaurant was cozy and intimate. With soft lighting and a menu focused on seasonal ingredients, Nathan ordered a bottle of wine, and they talked about everything except work. He told her about growing up in a small coastal town, his decision to study architecture, and his dream of designing sustainable housing. Emma found herself opening up about her own past, carefully editing out the painful details of her marriage. "Can I ask you something personal?" Nathan said after their main courses arrived. "You do not have to answer if you are not comfortable." Emma nodded, curious about what he wanted to know. "You seem like someone who has been through something difficult recently," Nathan observed gently. "I do not mean to pry, but I get the sense that there is a story behind your incredible comeback in the design world." Emma took a sip of wine, considering how much to share. There was something about Nathan's genuine concern that made her want to be honest. "I was married," she began slowly, "to someone who made me feel small and unimportant. He convinced me that my career did not matter and that I should focus on supporting his success instead. For 3 years, I lost myself trying to be the perfect wife for someone who never appreciated me. When he told me I was the biggest mistake of his life, I finally found the courage to leave." Nathan's expression grew serious, and Emma saw anger flash in his eyes. "He said that to you? What kind of person says something so cruel to someone they supposedly loved?" "Someone who never really loved me at all," Emma replied quietly. "It took me a long time to understand that it was not my fault. I was not the mistake. The mistake was staying with someone who could not see my value." Nathan reached across the table and gently placed his hand over hers. "For what it is worth, I think he was an absolute fool. You are talented, intelligent, and amazing at what you do. Anyone who could not see that does not deserve you." Emma felt tears prick at her eyes, but they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of gratitude and relief. For so long, she had internalized Daniel's words and believed that she was somehow lacking. But here was someone who saw her clearly and appreciated everything she had to offer. "Thank you," she whispered. "That means more to me than you know." As the weeks turned into months, Emma and Nathan grew closer. Their professional relationship evolved into a genuine friendship, and then into something that felt like the beginning of romance. Nathan never pushed or demanded her time. He simply showed up consistently, proving through his actions that he valued her presence in his life. Meanwhile, Daniel's life was following a very different trajectory. After Emma left, he convinced himself that he was better off without her. He threw himself even deeper into his work, closing deals and expanding his real estate empire. But the penthouse apartment felt emptier than ever. The silence that he once valued now felt suffocating. He started seeing Emma's work pop up in design magazines and industry publications. Her name was mentioned in articles about rising talents in interior design. He saw photographs of spaces she had created, each one showcasing her incredible eye for detail and her ability to make environments feel both beautiful and welcoming. Something twisted in his chest every time he saw her name. Then one day, Daniel's business partner invited him to tour a new residential development that was generating significant buzz in the real estate community. Daniel agreed, always interested in seeing what the competition was doing. When they arrived at the property, he was immediately impressed by the thoughtful architecture and the quality of construction. "Wait until you see the model units," his partner said enthusiastically. "The interior design is absolutely stunning. It is what is really selling this place." They walked into the first model unit, and Daniel stopped in his tracks. He recognized Emma's work immediately. The color palette, the furniture selection, the way she had layered textures and patterns to create depth and warmth. This was unmistakably her vision. "Who did the interiors?" Daniel asked, though he already knew the answer. "A designer named Emma Williams. his partner replied. She's apparently one of the hottest names in the industry right now. Everyone wants to work with her. Daniel walked through the space in a daze, seeing Emma's talent on full display. How had he never noticed this about her when they were married? How had he dismissed her abilities and made her feel like her career did not matter? The realization of what he had lost hit him like a freight train. 3 months later, Emma received an invitation to the annual Design Excellence Awards, one of the most prestigious events in the industry. She had been nominated for her work on Nathan's residential development, and she could hardly believe it. Grace helped her pick out a stunning emerald green gown that made her feel elegant and confident. Nathan offered to be her date for the evening, and Emma accepted with a warm smile. As they arrived at the Grand Hotel ballroom where the ceremony was being held, Emma felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. This was a huge moment for her career, and she wanted to savor every second of it. The ballroom was decorated with elaborate, floral arrangements and glittering chandeliers. Round tables filled the space, each one covered in crisp white linens and set with fine china. Emma and Nathan found their assigned seats and settled in as the program began. Throughout dinner, Nathan kept her laughing with funny stories and gentle encouragement. No matter what happens tonight, you should be incredibly proud, Nathan told her. The fact that you are nominated at all is a huge achievement. Emma squeezed his hand gratefully. Having Nathan by her side made everything feel more manageable and more joyful. What Emma did not know was that Daniel was also at the event. His company was one of the major sponsors, which meant he had a prominent table near the front of the room. When he walked in and scanned the crowd, his eyes landed on Emma almost immediately. She looked absolutely radiant in her green gown, her hair styled in soft waves that framed her face. But what made his stomach drop was the man sitting beside her, clearly attentive and affectionate. Daniel felt a surge of emotions he could not quite name. Jealousy, regret, anger, longing. He watched as Emma laughed at something the man said, her entire face lighting up with genuine happiness. He had never made her look that way. Even in their early days of dating, he had never brought out that kind of pure joy in her. He tried to focus on the awards presentation, but his attention kept drifting back to Emma. When her category was announced, Daniel found himself holding his breath. The presenter opened the envelope and read the winner's name. Emma Williams, for her exceptional interior design work on the Riverside residential development. The ballroom erupted in applause. Emma stood up with tears in her eyes, clearly shocked and overwhelmed. Nathan stood with her, pulling her into a congratulatory hug before she made her way to the stage. Daniel watched her accept the award, give a gracious speech, and pose for photographs. She was poised, professional, and utterly captivating. As the evening continued, Daniel found himself unable to sit still. He needed to talk to Emma, to tell her that he had been wrong about everything. He waited until she left the ballroom, presumably heading toward the restroom or to take a break from the crowd. He followed her out into the elegant hallway. Emma, he called out. She turned around, and the smile immediately fell from her face when she saw him. Daniel, what are you doing here? My company is a sponsor, he explained, taking a few steps closer. But that does not matter. I needed to see you. To talk to you. Congratulations on your award. You deserve it. Emma crossed her arms protectively over her chest. Thank you. If that is all you wanted to say, I should get back to my table. Wait, Daniel said urgently. Please, just give me a few minutes. I have been trying to figure out how to reach out to you for months now. Why would you want to reach out to me? Emma asked coolly. You made it very clear that I was a mistake in your life. Daniel flinched at his own words being thrown back at him. I was wrong. I was so incredibly wrong, Emma. I have spent every day since you left regretting what I said and how I treated you. I did not appreciate what I had until it was gone. Emma shook her head in disbelief. You cannot be serious right now. Do you have any idea how much you hurt me? How many nights I cried myself to sleep feeling worthless because of the things you said and did? I know, Daniel said, his voice breaking, and I will never forgive myself for that. But I am asking you to forgive me. I want another chance. I want to prove to you that I can be the husband you deserved all along. Before Emma could respond, Nathan appeared in the hallway. He immediately assessed the situation, noting Emma's uncomfortable body language and Daniel's intense expression. Emma, is everything all right? Nathan asked, positioning himself protectively beside her. Daniel's jaw tightened as he looked at the other man. This is a private conversation. Not if Emma does not want it to be, Nathan replied calmly. Emma took a deep breath, looking between the two men. Nathan, this is Daniel, my ex-husband. Daniel, this is Nathan Brooks. We work together. Daniel's eyes narrowed. Is that all you are? Work colleagues? That is none of your business, Emma said firmly. You lost the right to ask questions about my personal life when you threw me away like I meant nothing. Daniel stepped forward, desperation clear in his expression. Emma, please. I love you. I should have said it more when we were together. I should have shown it every single day. But I am saying it now. I love you, and I cannot stand the thought of you being with someone else. Nathan looked at Emma with concern. Do you want me to give you to some privacy? Emma considered for a moment, then shook her head. No, stay. Daniel needs to hear this, and I want you here. She turned to face Daniel directly, her voice steady and strong. For 3 years, I waited for you to love me the way I deserved. I made excuses for your coldness and your absence. I convinced myself that if I was just more patient, more understanding, more perfect, you would finally see me. But you never did. And when I finally had the courage to ask for what I needed, you told me I was your biggest mistake. Tears were streaming down Emma's face now, but her voice never wavered. Do you know what that did to me? Do you have any idea how long it took me to believe that I was not actually a mistake? That I was worthy of love and respect and partnership? Daniel reached out to touch her arm, but Emma stepped back. I am not finished. You do not get to show up here tonight, after I have finally rebuilt my life, and expect me to just fall back into your arms. Love is not just a word you say when you realize you have lost something valuable. Love is showing up every day. Love is paying attention. Love is making someone feel like they matter. She glanced at Nathan, whose eyes were filled with understanding and support. Then she looked back at Daniel. You taught me what love is not supposed to feel like, and now I am learning what it should feel like. So no, Daniel, I do not forgive you, and I do not want another chance with you. Daniel's face crumpled. Emma, please. I will do anything. I will change. I will be different. You should have changed when I was begging you to, Emma said sadly. You should have been different when I was still your wife. But you were not, and now it is too late. I hope you learn from this. I hope your next relationship is different. But I am not going to sacrifice my peace and my happiness to teach you how to be a better person. She took Nathan's hand and looked up at him. Can we go back inside? I want to celebrate this night with people who actually care about me. Nathan nodded, squeezing her hand gently. They started to walk past Daniel, but he called out one more time. I see it now, Daniel said, his voice hollow. I see everything I was too blind to notice before. You were never the mistake, Emma. I was. Emma paused and looked back at him over her shoulder. Yes, you were. But that was your lesson to learn, not mine to keep teaching you. She walked back into the ballroom with Nathan by her side, leaving Daniel standing alone in the hallway with the weight of his regrets. Inside, the celebration continued. Emma tried to refocus on the positive energy around her, but she could feel her hands trembling from the confrontation. Nathan led her to a quiet corner of the ballroom and wrapped his arms around her in a comforting embrace. Are you okay? He asked softly. Emma nodded against his chest. I am better than okay. I finally said everything I needed to say. I finally stood up for myself in a way I never could when we were married. Nathan pulled back slightly to look at her face. I am so proud of you. And I know this probably is not the best timing, but I need you to know something. Emma looked up at him curiously. What is it? I am falling in love with you, Nathan admitted. I have been for months now, and I understand if you are not ready for that or if you need more time to heal. But after watching you face your ex-husband with so much strength and dignity, I could not keep it to myself anymore. You are extraordinary, Emma. And I would be honored if you would let me show you every day what it feels like to be truly loved. Emma felt fresh tears spring to her eyes. But these were tears of joy. I am falling in love with you too. You make me feel seen and valued in ways I never thought possible. Nathan smiled and gently wiped the tears from her cheeks. Then let's start fresh. No more looking back at what was. Only looking forward to what can be. Emma nodded, feeling a sense of peace and certainty wash over her. I would like that very much. As they returned to their table, hand in hand, Emma caught one final glimpse of Daniel leaving the ballroom. His shoulders were slumped, and he looked utterly defeated. Part of her felt sad for him, but a larger part felt free. She was no longer chained to his opinion of her, or defined by his inability to love her properly. 6 months later, Emma and Nathan stood together at the opening of their collaborative design showroom. It was a space where Nathan's architectural models and Emma's interior design concepts could be displayed side by side, showing potential clients how their combined talents could create truly special spaces. Grace was there, along with dozens of clients, colleagues, and friends who had supported Emma on her journey. As Emma looked around the room at the life she had built, she felt overwhelming gratitude. She had gone from feeling like a mistake to knowing she was a masterpiece. She had transformed her pain into purpose and her heartbreak into healing. Daniel had taught her what she did not want in a relationship. Nathan was teaching her what she did deserve, and most importantly, she had taught herself that her worth was never dependent on someone else's ability to see it. The biggest mistake was never Emma. The biggest mistake was anyone who failed to recognize how extraordinary she truly was. And as she stood in her showroom, surrounded by love and success, Emma knew she would never forget that truth again. Her story was not about a woman who was broken by cruel words. It was about a woman who rebuilt herself into something even stronger and more beautiful than before. And that was a story worth celebrating. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this story. If you enjoyed this content, don't forget to click like. Share this story with your friends and family, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on more meaningful stories.